An epic mindset is being excellent, being perceptive, being inspired, and being compassionate. EPIC.
Hello, this is Raymond Aaron, New York Times top 10 bestselling author, bringing you Respark Your Life Podcast, the world's premier podcast to ignite the fire to allow you to live life on your own terms. Every single Thursday, I bring you a multi-millionaire, world-famous celebrity to teach you about the most fascinating ways in order to live a far better life. Every single Thursday, you just need to subscribe by hitting the subscribe button. I'll see you every Thursday to Respark Your Life.
Yes, this is Raymond Aaron, founder and interviewer of Respark Your Life, where I bring you stealth wisdom that you could never find on your own. And today I'm bringing you Dr. Matt Kutz, a PhD in global leadership, award-winning author, award-winning educator, researcher, and speaker. Matt is most excited about being a husband, a dad, a grandpa, and in his spare time is insanely passionate about helping you gain perspective and overcome the adversity and uncertainty that life brings. He does that through, wait for this, he does that through helping you to develop an epic mindset, whatever that is, I'm going to ask him, and practice contextual intelligence, never heard of it, I'm going to ask him about that, and 3D thinking, never heard of that. So stay tuned because I'm going to learn right along with you. Matt, are you here?
I am here, and thanks so much, Raymond, for having me.
Well, let's dig right into it. What on earth is an epic mindset?
An epic mindset is the attitude you carry with you based on 4 what I call epic maxims. And epic obviously can represent many things. For me, it represents being excellent, being perceptive, being inspired, and being compassionate. So EPIC, so an acronym or a mnemonic for those 4 leadership or even just lifestyle maxims, again, of developing a spirit and an attitude of excellence, learning how to perceive things that are going on around you. That is where we tie into the contextual intelligence piece and the 3D thinking. And then there's how to be inspired, not only yourself being inspired, but inspiring the people around you. And then, of course, walking in and moving in compassion.
Wow, I'm impressed. Epic mindset. I like it. I like it. Now, when you were a little boy and big people called adults came up to you and said, "Hey, little Maddie, what do you want to be when you grow up?" Did you say, "I want to write a book on epic mindset"?
No, oh my goodness, no. But I did want to be a leader. Now, I didn't know what all that meant at the time. My father, who was very instrumental, my mom too, my father was very instrumental in instilling in all of us kids. He had 4 kids. I have 3 siblings. The idea of what it meant to be an influencer. And so, I kind of thought maybe I would be a professional athlete or hope, something like that. But of course, the attitudes that he instilled in us early on stuck with me. And then I eventually became that person who earned the PhDs, wrote the books, et cetera, done the research, et cetera, but never in my wildest imagination did I view myself as what I have become, which is an academic. I was always going to be something other than that, to say the least.
I'm glad you told me the truth, because most speakers on stage have concocted this miracle story where they were driving in a new town and they decided to go into that store they'd never been in before. And then they met this person, which changed their life. They concoct this whole miracle story.
Right.
The truth is that for most of us, it just happened. Now, other
for
things,
me, a lot of hard work and discipline. Absolutely right.
Right. And so I remember I was broke, 50 pounds overweight, $100,000 in debt. My boss had just fired me. My wife had just divorced me. I was sad, hopeless, and I was having a dinner party with some friends, and I was telling them that I had made all this money in real estate. I lost it in the divorce, but I knew how to make it. And someone said, well, a friend of mine wants to learn how to make money in real estate. I said, well, so what? I'm not inviting your friend to dinner. But I don't get it. He said, why don't you rent a hotel room and put an ad in the paper? That's how long ago it was. Put an ad in the paper and then tell people about it. I said, okay. And I did. And in my very first ad, I said, Raymond Aaron in person. In person. This was my very first speech ever. And I was broke and unemployed and heavily in debt. And I said, me in person, as if I could come some other way, as a hologram or something.
Right.
And that started my speaking career 42 years ago in May of 1983.
Wow. Wow. And of course, it's all been easy and downhill from there, right?
Wow. So do you coach in the field of epic mindset?
Well, so the answer to that is yes and no. And I do it indirectly because, again, one of the things that's different about what I do and how I do it, because I have a day job. I'm a professor, a tenured professor, and work in a university and teach in a doctoral program. So a lot of what I do is still just the good old fashioned professor stuff. And what has been so interesting for me is along my journey, you stumble into things like this and you write a textbook, and then somebody asks you to speak here and someone asks you to speak there. And then you do a conference presentation in an academic crowd and somebody says, this is interesting here. And so 20 years of that, 28 years actually of that, mulling things over, iteration 1, iteration 2, iteration 1,000, and that hard work, that discipline, the keeping after it, is such a critical thing to do.
Okay, I get that you have a day job, but concerning epic mindset, do you teach that? Do you coach it? Do you have videos on it? What do you got? Oh, and you have a book, of course.
Yeah. So I wrote a book, and specific to the becoming epic thing, it goes back to, I've always wanted to be epic myself. And I didn't know what that meant or what that looked like. I just know that I wanted my life to have meaning, to have purpose. And I really wanted to be able to spark life in other people and help them realize that they can do more than they wanted to do. Something happened actually 2 years ago that really forced me down this journey. In 2023, I was diagnosed with cancer. It was supposed to be the easy cancer, prostate cancer. They were going to take care of it. It was going to be no problem. And then after the surgery and some biopsies, and the news just kept getting worse and worse. And it turned out to be very advanced, metastasized, found some in my pelvis and in my lymph nodes. And so that really derailed me. In fact, I had several speaking events planned during that time, which I had to cancel for radiation. And one of the things that I've always tried to live my life by, and my wife and my children will attest to this, is, I believe that chaos is the package that your potential arrives in, something that I like to say. And we have to understand, I believe, and am firmly convinced that the disruption, the turbulence, the chaos that comes into your life is never meant to destroy you. It's meant to make you better. It's make you to see things the way you haven't seen them before and change your perspective, and to, as even your podcast is named, to give you a new spark, to re-spark, your life. I believe that. That's not tongue in cheek. That's not just something I say, to placate to people. I believe that with all my heart, and I always have. I told my wife that during these 40 days of radiation, because I had to cancel three gigs I was really excited to do, and couldn't travel, couldn't do anything like that. So I said I was going to write 1,000 words every day for 40 days, as just to keep myself, focused, so to speak. And I initially intended for that to be a journal of just logging my emotions, my memories, my feelings, all those kinds of things, and hope that it might help somebody someday who experienced, similar kinds of adversity in a diagnosis. And it was day 3 of this exercise that I started writing about a framework that I had used in one of my lectures like a year or two before. It was a one-off lecture on being epic and what you need to do to become an epic leader. I call it the epic leadership loop, and the 4 things you need to do to be a better leader. And I was teaching it in an academic leadership class of all places. And I just thought, listen, if you want to be epic, you have to be excellent at what you do. Everything you do needs to be a positive track record. And you measure excellence not by what someone else is doing, but by what you did previously. And an excellent person isn't excellent because they did something better than someone else did. It's an epic person is they did better than their last experience or last previous thing. So you've got to be excellent. You have to pursue that in every aspect and facet of your life. Then you have to be perceptive, and perception then fed into some of my research and professional writing on contextual intelligence, which is the ability to discern your environment in real time. And I teach a model of that, to how to do that with this model called 3D thinking. The 3Ds I am referring to are the 3 dimensions of time. So literally the 3 dimensions of hindsight, past, present, and future, which I describe as hindsight, insight, and foresight. And if you truly want to perceive accurately what's going on around you, you have to properly leverage hindsight, which is your experience and the value your experiences have taught you. But you also have to leverage insight, and that's learning to frame your experiences and memories through what's actually happening right now in real time. So many people misuse hindsight because they forget that there's 2 other dimensions of time through which that memory is filtered. So you have to pay attention to what's really happening in front of you right now in real time. And then you also have to have foresight. You have to know where you want to be and who you want to become. And you have to be able to articulate that clearly. And I describe that by differentiating foresight from fantasy, because I believe everybody has a dimension of foresight, but they really don't know how to use it. So it defaults to, or it becomes fantasy. Boy, I would sure like to get out of debt. I would sure like to have a better marriage. I would sure like to, retire on the beach and have a sports car. That's a fantasy. They talk about these things, finish my book, finish my degrees, whatever it might be. And when you ask them, okay, well, how are you going to do that? What's your plan to get there? And they say, well, I don't know. I'm just hoping that happens. I mean, that's just a nice dream of mine to have. And that's fantasy. And we really need foresight, which is the ability to see that future, but then also to articulate a process to get there and get through and beyond the obstacles you see. So many people who I do coach and mentor talk about, well, I would like to get out of debt, but I can't because. I would like to have a great marriage, but I can't because. And I call it the I can't because clause. And if you're operating with that I can't because clause, that tells me you're operating in fantasy and not foresight. So learning to be perceptive requires learning how to accurately use hindsight, how to accurately use insight, and how to accurately leverage foresight. So that's what it means to be perceptive. Then you have to be inspired. And not only do you have to be inspired, but you have to live a life in such a way that if you're excellent and perceptive, other people gain inspiration from watching you do what you do. And the other big thing to that is so many people fall victim to the lie that inspiration is an external source. And it's just not. I mean, there's and I don't just mean that in a mindfulness, metaphysical kind of way. There's actually a significant body of scientifically backed, evidence-based research around where inspiration truly comes from. And it comes from understanding your own thought process, metacognition, for example. Why do you think the way you think? What experiences do you have? How do you interpret those experiences? That leads to inspiration. You can actually cultivate and curate your own source of inspiration. And that's what I believe an epic person does. And then finally, they have to be compassionate. And that is, learning to go alongside someone with pain and grief and suffering and things like that. And what's interesting in my studies about compassion, it's actually a compound word of two Latin words, com, which means with, and passion, which means grief or suffering, as in passion of the Christ. We so misunderstand the concept of passion in our society. We think it's a good thing that gets you excited and gets you all hopeful and gives you, something to live for. That's never what passion ever meant. We kind of perverted it in our society. Passion was always pain and suffering. So, in other words, you have to be willing to walk alongside of pain and suffering, your own and other people's, in order to live this epic life and to truly demonstrate compassion. And so that's what the lecture was about. And it was a one-off, like I said, I just was on my mind. And as I'm doing this journaling exercise, I just wrote a paragraph, started with one paragraph on, hey, yeah, I'm reminding myself to be epic and try to maintain this thing. And after that, I kind of fell into this, I don't even know what to describe it. It was just something happened to me. And I spent the next 37 days writing about what I thought it meant to be epic and just expanding and unpacking each of those concepts in much more detail. And by the end of the 40 days, I had pretty near 40,000 words written on this concept of having an epic mindset. And so I pitched it to some publishers. I told my wife when I was finished after the radiation was over, and that's a whole nother story, because as radiation goes on, it wears you down more and more and more. And by the end of the 40 days, I was just a mess. And but I told my wife, I said, hey, honey, I wrote something here that I think I'm really proud of. Maybe the book I've always wanted to write. And of course, I pitched it around and it got picked up. And it's actually coming out in August of this year, becoming epic. So I'm pretty excited about that.
Me too. What a blessed, sweet, compelling story. And if my listeners didn't figure it out, the 4 topics he was saying were the EPIC of epic.
Yeah.
Wow. That's really a powerful story. And it came from the pain. Like if you hadn't had to recover, you wouldn't have had 40 days to write it.
Right. Exactly right. And it was, that thing that, we alluded to at the beginning of our conversation of, these things don't just magically happen, things that are valuable, and even your own story, going broke, getting divorced, all these kinds of things. And it's, nobody welcomes those into their life and, goes forward thinking, oh man, I'm going to have all these hard things happen. But when they do happen, you can't use them as an excuse not to continue to be epic and to practice those 4 maxims. You didn't do it. You're like, hey, I'm going to go out on a limb here and do an in-person show here at the local hotel and see if I can help some people. And that's, I think a lot of good ideas come from that. Artists historically and are known for, some of their greatest works come from their pain and their grief and things like that. And I'm not saying that you welcome those things and are glad about those things. But what we do need to understand are those things, if you will allow them, are meant to re-spark you, to reshape you, to reignite you, and to get you to think about things and to say things and to do things that you might have never done before. It happened to you, it happened to me, and I think most others as well.
Matt, tell me a success story in your coaching. Somebody came to you, they had an issue, you used epic, and they were grateful and wonderful afterwards. Tell us that story.
Yeah, so I could think of a couple of people in particular, but one story that comes to mind and is, I was meeting with this one particular person who wasn't actually a client of mine, to be honest with you. They were just a person who had been observant of through my journey and understand, somebody who had actually felt sorry for me and was like, I don't know how you can have the mindset that you have and understand the framework that you have, what you've gone through. What you've gone through would have, destroyed me. And so I was able to sit down with this person and explain my philosophy around, the epics mindset and the epic thing, and just explaining to them, all these different phases of development and the journey and what I how I measure excellence. And this particular person was just like always that person who thought that being excellent meant being perfect. And I really was able to explain to them that perfection is not possible, but excellence is. And describing the perfectionism that drives him and so many other people, that only leads to disappointment, because quite frankly, perfection is impossible.
Right.
But what's not impossible is being excellent. And that little shift in mindset set him free from being this driven person who always had to, winning always meant beating the other person, being
Right.
better than the other person, putting the other person down, and also had a very difficult internal struggle with himself on, I can't, unless this is perfect. And that was a major encouragement for me to realize that I can be excellent and not have to be perfect.
I'm going to take a 90-degree turn.
Okay.
I'm going to ask you a question you have no competence to answer, but you have to answer it anyways.
Okay.
You ready?
I'm ready.
Would you rather be, and you have to choose one, would you rather be a fortune cookie or a birthday cake?
I would rather be a birthday cake, and that's an easy one for me.
Tell me.
Because everybody loves birthday cake.
That's true.
Everybody loves birthday cake. I don't care who you are. I know so many people who they're at a birthday party and they're like super health conscious freaks, and this kind of thing. And I don't eat that kind of stuff. But when the birthday cake comes around, everybody like breaks their rules to have a piece of birthday cake, because it's just always means celebration, always means fun, so yeah, definitely a birthday cake. A fortune cookie, you open that up and every time, or many times, you're like, huh, what, kind of a thing. And so yeah, birthday cake for sure for me.
Okay, now give us something. We've listened to you, we love you, we're excited about Epic. What do you got for us?
Well, one of the things that I hope to be able to convey is, like I said, just the understanding that you can be better. And I have my website, there's many things on my website. Article, I even have my research there. Books are there. I've written 8 or 9 books now, and some on marriage, some on cancer. I wrote a new one called Diagnose, which is how to wrestle with, the pain and turmoil of cancer. So there's a lot of resources there. What I have is hope. And I really try hard to have a positive spin on these kinds of things. So, MatthewKutz.com, and there you can reach out to me. Here's one of the things that I don't think you get from a lot of people, and that's I love talking about this stuff. I mean, it excites me, and I know that it can help you. And so if you reach out to me, I will respond. I'm that guy who you'll get me. You won't get an assistant. You won't get somebody else following up for me. You'll get me. My emails, actually, believe it or not, my phone number is on my website. So, you call, I will pick up the phone. And it's because I love this and I believe in this.
Well, Mr. Matt Kutz, what a fascinating interview. I have been buoyed up by you, even though you say inspiration has to come from within. It also occasionally comes.
It absolutely does. But when you're feeling like there is none, you have to go within to find it.
Of course. And I've enjoyed it. Matthew Kutz, Kutz or Z.com. Go there. There's all kinds of resources there, including his email address and his phone number that he personally answers. Thank you. You've done a brilliant job for me and for my subscribers. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Raymond. I really appreciate it.
Wow, I sure hope you enjoyed that fascinating episode. Please make sure you've subscribed, and please tell your friends, if you like it, that they will probably like it as well. For your information, this experience, this service, this podcast has been sponsored by the Orbit Coaching Program. All of my friends, all my world-famous speaker friends, all have coaching programs. Mine has been independently rated as the #1 high-level coaching program. You cannot purchase it. You have to audition for it by me personally. If you're interested, please email me at respark@aaron.com. Respark at AARON. Say that you're interested in being considered for the Orbit Coaching Program and include your cell phone number so that I personally will call you back.